Hey YouTube, it's been a little while. We need to talk. So yeah, despite it being kind of its own subgenre here on YouTube, YouTubers complaining about YouTube, I haven't done it in a little bit because there's nothing new to complain about. It's the same nonsense it's been for a while. But then I noticed something different, something odd, something that maybe others have noticed. Nobody in the circles I traffic with has talked about it if they have. So I'm going to talk about it regardless. And if this turns out to already be a well-known thing, well, yeah, I'm just the fool then, I guess. But YouTube's messing with monetization. Now that in and of itself is hardly news. We all remember the adpocalypse a few years back. But it's not that. It's actually something that, on paper, they could probably defend, or at least they'd have a much better chance at defending than, when they demonetize specific videos without sending you any kind of notification about it. You have to go in and check manually to see if something has been marked as not advertiser friendly and it runs with limited ads or with no ads because of the subject matter, etc., etc., etc. Like, I'm not talking about any of that. They're putting in more ads. Now, I'll get into the specifics of what I'm talking about in a minute, but that, again, in and of itself, by itself, if you've been paying attention to YouTube, that's not a shock either. YouTube thrives on the ad revenue. That's also what the creators who do this professionally thrive on. Well, it's part of what they thrive on. Pretty much all of us have Patreons for a reason. Go support mine, because damn the site. But yeah, I wonder how this is going to do in the algorithm. It tanked. I wonder why. Anyway, the thing is, YouTube has done various small things to just signal that they're going to be doing something. Whether it be the fact that back in, I believe it was 2020, they shortened how long a video has to be to run a mid-roll ad. A mid-roll, to be clear, because this is going to kind of be the big crux of what I'm going to talk about. A mid-roll is any ad that runs during the body of the video. And it used to be your video had to be at least 10 minutes long to have access to the option to place mid-rolls. And if it was any shorter than that, they wouldn't let you. Well, they shortened it to just 8 minutes. So if you've ever watched videos from like 3 or 4 years ago where it seemed like they were arbitrarily hitting like 10 minutes and a second, especially if it was from a content mill style channel, yeah, there's a reason. And most of them now are probably aiming right for that 8-minute mark. But that happened last September. They actually ran an experiment basically appearing to stress test the audience to find out how far they could push maximizing ads. Some people were reporting getting 10 ads in a row in the pre-roll. Normally at this point, it's 2 max. And people were reporting an increased number of unskippable ads. People were reporting more mid-rolls than they were used to. And this was fairly brief. And YouTube did acknowledge that this was something they did. This wasn't a glitch. This wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an error. This was something they did deliberately and then stopped doing because they gathered whatever data they wanted. But we all should have known at that point that they were going to try and do something, because you wouldn't gather that data if you don't plan to use it. And of course, they pushed harder during the experimentation period than they would on any kind of actual implementation. The thing is, we didn't know what they were going to do. And while there might be other things coming down the pipe, what they appear to have done and what I seem to have uncovered, and again, I'm not trying to act like I'm an investigative journalist. Other people might have known or even talked about this. Hey, YouTubers, they're messing with your mid-rolls. Because here's the thing about mid-roll ads. You can have them placed in one of 2 ways. You can press a button, and YouTube's algorithm will place mid-rolls automatically I do not recommend ever making use of that because it's going to place them haphazardly, basically anywhere where there's a little bit of a pause. Well, not necessarily anywhere, but spaces with a little bit of a pause, it's going to consider viable. Sometimes that pause is there because, yes, you're taking a breather before shifting to another topic, or it's a title card for a new subject if it's a video essay. But also sometimes you pause because you took a second to gather your thoughts, or you just paused for emphasis, and suddenly an ad plays. Never use the automatic. The automatic is terrible. I manually place my ads. I always have. And this is important to note now. So, a little bit of backstory as to why I started looking into this. I have a tendency to binge certain YouTubers off and on, and oftentimes rewatching stuff, like just to have as background. Like I'm doing something else. I'm doing chores. I'm doing laundry. I'm packing for the weekend. Going to see somebody or whatever. And I've got stuff on in the background that's stuff I already kind of know, but I like. And my most recent sort of re-listen, really, because I don't really watch it that much, but re-listen kick has been Todd in the Shadows, who is a YouTuber I've enjoyed for a while. I like his stuff a lot. And I noticed his videos kept getting interrupted with ads. And not once, but repeatedly. And I didn't remember his videos having repeated monetization, more than one mid-roll on most of them. Like some of them maybe some of the list videos, but not on his standard ones. And it seemed excessive, and it jumped out at me. I'm like, did he add extra monetization like to some of his older stuff? Because some of the stuff I was listening to was years old. And it just struck me as like, this seems like a lot. And then I just thought in general, like, I kind of have been feeling like more videos that from people who, I like have more often awkwardly inserted ads. And then on a hunch, I decided to look at my own videos, my own monetization, my own mid-rolls. Here's what I found. Firstly, just standard practice for me, I place a pre-roll, a post-roll, and if a video is long enough and I feel it's appropriate, I will place mid-rolls. Sometimes I actually don't place mid-rolls at all, and I'll come back to that as well. But first of all, I found somewhere either the pre-roll or the post-roll or both were turned off. The mid-rolls were never turned off on these older videos that I was looking at. But then when I went to look at the mid-roll, the placement was definitely not what I would have done. We're going to take this video as a recent example for where I tend to place them. This is a solid enough example because it's pretty standard for what I tend to do. So this video in particular was about 21 minutes. I had an ad placed around 8:20 and around 4:28. Now, just going by time, I would have broken them up a little bit closer to like the 7-minute and the 14-minute mark. So like, sort of at third points through it. This was a list video, so I had to place them in a way that actually fell between entries. If I'd done it just by the timing, it would have interrupted the mid-entry. But that gives you a general idea of the general philosophy of which I approach this. My general approach is to place an ad maybe every 8 to 12 minutes, depending on length. It's actually pretty rare for me to place more than 2 ads regardless of length. That's usually where I top out. Occasionally, if the video is up in the 40-minute range, maybe I'll place 3, but I don't always do that. 2 is pretty standard since these days most of my videos run between 20 minutes and half an hour. So 2 is pretty normal, but sometimes I only do 1. But anyway, that's what it tends to look like. And that's how I've always done it, because I've never gone for the automatic mid-roll placement. I've always placed them manually because I don't trust YouTube's system. And I'll even give you an idea of how bad it can get, because something that was actually brought to my attention by some people who, because every 2 weeks I do live streams on here, and some folks who missed the live stream but were trying to watch the playback, this was like 3 years ago or so, somebody told me, this thing is loaded with ads. I was like, what? And I went to check the mid-rolls on the live stream. Now, admittedly, At the time, I had just let the automatic placement do the mid-rolls for me. And they looked like this, which is absurd. Now, these days, after it tries to place those on the archived live streams, I then go in and manually delete usually all but 3 or 4 of them. But yeah, that's how bad it can get on the automatic. I think it's probably a little bit worse on lives than on the regular ones, but that's the baseline for how bad it can get. It's why I don't use the automatic placement as a rule of thumb. I do kind of use it a little bit in the lives insofar as I'll let it place them initially, but then as soon as they're placed, I'll go in and delete most of them. Anyways, it hasn't been that bad on the ones where clearly stuff has been altered, but it has been stuff like this. I would never place an ad 1 minute and 30 seconds into a video, especially a video like this one was, talking about representation and Bill Potts. Like, maybe at some earlier point in my career, I might have placed an ad between a preamble and like the first entry on a ranked list or something, but that's not what kind of video this was. I wouldn't place an ad there. And there's others. We've got one here, ad dropped at 12 seconds. I would never place an ad at 12 seconds, yet there it is. And initially, I thought this was only afflicting older videos. But then there's stuff like this, which is only like a month and a bit old, and it's got an ad just a little over 1 minute into it. I didn't put that there. So what's it doing there, YouTube? Now, this might strike you as odd that I am complaining about this, because doesn't that mean more ad revenue for me? Possibly. But it also is disrespectful to my audience because I didn't put it there, because I know it would be disruptive to be there. And it's disrespectful to me as a creator. I didn't tell you to place them automatically. I put them where I think they belong. And then there was something else I noticed that isn't necessarily insidious, but very much shows the mentality that YouTube is currently operating under, which is on the main page of my dashboard. There's this little bit here, and it was giving me the idea and like showing me coins like, ooh, look, money. Enable ads on your latest video. Now it's specifically citing my video on transgenocide in the US. First of all, not my latest video. It is my most successful video of this year so far, by a bit. But I deliberately chose not to have mid-rolls run on that video because, given the subject matter, it would have been gross. I did have the pre-roll and the post-roll on there because, yes, I do still need to kind of make a living to some degree, but I was not going to interrupt the body of that video with a mid-roll ad because I did not need my discussion of what is happening to trans people in this country to be interrupted by an ad for frickin' Bounty paper towels or whatever the hell. I didn't put them there for a reason. Now, YouTube has not gone so far as to turn on mid-rolls on a video where I deliberately didn't have them. But they have messed around with the mid-roll placement on other videos. And they're dropping very blatant hints, basically telling me, we think you made a mistake. This video is doing so well. Clearly there should be ads running in the body, but maybe I don't want them there. Maybe I, as a creator, felt that something was more important than the money lining my pocket, and definitely more important than the money lining yours. So again, it might strike you as odd, because don't I want to make money? Yes, but I also want to respect my audience. And I know YouTube doesn't respect any creator. They don't. They respect the potential for ads. That's why they shorten the length of a video to be able to get mid-rolls. That's why they stress tested the limits of people's ability to take in advertisements. And then there's other little things, like there was a thing a little bit ago where when a mid-roll is coming up, a little countdown timer, 5, 4, 3, 2, ad coming, that stopped showing up on some instances, on some platforms. Now, they claim that was a glitch, and that's possible since it was primarily happening to those viewing on TVs as opposed to those viewing on phones or on their PCs. But it also might not have been, given that that's how regular TV is. Granted, shows are structured to allow for ads at a certain point, but you don't get a countdown when you watch TV. So I could just as easily believe that they made a deliberate choice to try and get away with not having that warning coming up on things played on a TV because of a presumed difference in tolerance of the audience watching by that method. That's purely speculative on my part, but it would fit what they've been doing. And something I found out while editing this, YouTube is currently running another experiment, and this one where they won't play certain videos if you have an ad blocker enabled. So not only are they currently trying to jam more ads in, they are going to force people to watch them in any way they possibly can. And this is all very standard, by the way, because companies are expected to grow year over year. And if they hit a point where they can no longer expect that they can grow their customer base, at least not at the rate they have been, well, then their best option from their perspective is to milk more money out of the customers they already have. It's why Netflix is cracking down on password sharing. It's why video game makers jam in as much monetization as their audience will let them get away with. Because it's no longer simply acceptable to make profits, you must make more profits than last year, and you must do that every year into infinity. But every business has a natural ceiling where it will level out, and you're not going to get any more customers than you currently have. You're still making profit, but you're not growing. Well, now it's time to squeeze blood from a stone. Welcome to capitalism. So what can be done? Well, first of all, does anyone else even get mad about this? I have no idea. The viewers might, because it wrecks your experience to have ads placed not only excessively, but in spots where it completely breaks the flow of the video. So it's harming your experience as a viewer, but YouTube ultimately doesn't really care about you. It doesn't really care about creators either, but it cares slightly more about us than it does about you. So what can creators do? Well, first of all, it's a question of how many of them even care, because a lot of them are going to go, more money, what's the problem? Dignity, respect, coherence, the appreciation of the actual flow of the art of presenting your work to the world. And if that doesn't matter to you, then well, we have completely different ideas of what the purpose of being on a platform like this is, and I have nothing to say to you. But if you are a creator at all, first of all, actually, I would encourage you to check your own videos, because while I am very confident in what I'm saying, that this is what's happening is happening deliberately, I am currently a sample size of 1. So first of all, if you yourself are a creator and you're monetized, I would highly encourage you to look into this yourself and see what you find. And if you find what I found, and keep in mind, it's not every video. So don't just look at a couple and go like, it's not happening. I had to dig around. And like I said, initially, I thought it was only on older videos because I was finding it more there. But then I found it on newer stuff too. So it's not on everything. I couldn't figure out a pattern where it's popping up, but it's definitely there. And if that bothers you, for any of the reasons that it bothers me, or indeed for reasons other than that, if that bothers you at all, say something. Because this, for us, is not YouTube making us more money. It's them exerting control over what we put out there. It's them robbing us of our ability to say how monetization works on our own work. That's one of the few bits of power we have in this relationship, is deciding whether or not to monetize and how to monetize. And I have no doubt they want to place more ads because they're getting rid of the overlay ad. That went away just a month ago or so. Now, granted, it probably wasn't making them that much money. It really only happened on PCs, but that's still a loss. That's still ads that aren't running anymore. They want to make up for that. And that was probably an easy thing to cut because nobody liked the overlay ads. You have to X out of them. They're taking up a portion of the screen. It probably could even be pitched as an improvement for the consumer while they start to mess with the creators in a way that also wrecks the experience for consumers. I want to know how widespread this is, and it would be really heartening to know I'm not the only one who's actually pretty upset about this. YouTube, You have a lot of power in this scenario already. You basically hold almost all the cards when it comes to whether or not we make money, how much money we make. The ability to place the ads and trust that they were there in the manner that we decided was one of the few things that was in our own hands. The idea that you would take it away and behind our backs, because I don't remember any notification telling me that this was coming. Bullshit is what this is. Big, heaping piles of capitalist bullshit. And I had to talk about it. I would encourage you to spread this around. As I said, people complaining about it, it's about the only ammunition we've got. And people have to care. And maybe nobody does but me. I don't know. This video will probably tank in the algorithm anyway. I wonder why. What are your thoughts about this? Have you come across the same thing? Whatever your thoughts are, anecdotal or statistically backed up, drop them down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills a lot more consistently than YouTube does. So if you care about what I do, that's the best way to ensure that I can keep doing it, especially with this freaking platform. But even if you can't do this, like, subscribe, and share. I do think that if this is as underreported as it feels, this might be worth sharing around. I don't know. Maybe it's not. In any case, regardless of my level of anger, what I want you to remember is that you are beautiful, you are valid, and you are loved. You are the council. I'm just running the meetings, and until next time, this council is adjourned. Massive thanks to my Patreon supporters, and in particular, I want to thank Robin Moore, Zubin Lutfullah, Tarak, the thing that goes doink in the anime, Ruth, Oliver B., Solitary Pictures, Ulrich Bogdan, Melinda Walters, Jen, Leotha Boyd, Auntie Kate 808, Becky Sparks, Phenobilex the Poodle, Robin Powell, Tracy Scrabbit, Angry Caspero, Adam R.D.L. Taylor, David Hall, Shayla Gourlay, and Rosalind Bennett. Thanks for your support. You can get your name in the credits too if you feel like hearing me possibly struggle with it for several times before getting it right. Yeah, despite it being kind of its own genre, Miss Moneypenny.